Hello guys, how are you? This is our very last class and I have a mix of feelings and ideas in my mind about it. On one hand, I'm very happy that it's this season of the year, that it's Christmas, that we're going to celebrate that Jesus is coming. I'm also very happy that we all are going to have a winter break. For some of us, family are coming, right? Families are coming. That's my case. My family is coming from Mexico to spend the holidays, the Christmas with us, and we are very excited. But on the other hand, I'm sad because I have been really enjoying these classes with you guys, sharing these ideas with you, reading your papers, and I think that I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss these classes, these opportunities to share with you this content, and also I'm gonna miss the opportunity to read about the amazing work that you are doing with yourselves, with your lives, with with the time that has been given to you. So yeah, but I'm happy. I'm happy. And by the way, saying that, as I mentioned in my last email to you, I was really, really impressed by the decisions that you made, guys, with the assignment number 5, the one about um, altruistic act. It was really, really amazing to see your stories. Some of you did things that I was completely in awe. I was super happy. I was emotional. I was thanking our Lord for putting that in your hearts and allowing you to be so generous with people that they are in so much need. So thank you for that, guys. Thank you for all the good job that you are doing out there. All right, with that said, we have a very interesting, beautiful topic to cover today. And I hope that you enjoy it, that you like it. I definitely like this topic very much. I think that when they offered me to give this class, personal growth, the first thing that came to my mind was, oh, post-traumatic growth. I have to talk about that. So today we're going to be talking about post-traumatic growth. So let me share with you my screen so you can see the presentation that I have prepared for you. And we all can see the same. All right, so this is the presentation. Oops, sorry. The topic is post-traumatic growth, session number 8, the very last session, and with a beautiful painting that I'm going to talk to you about this painting later on, because I think that it's going to help us to understand what is post-traumatic growth from a Christian perspective, and the amazing story behind this painting as well. So, which is by no, it's an absolutely story of post-traumatic growth, collective post-traumatic growth, I would say. I don't know. Okay, we will talk about that in a moment. So let me tell you what are the topics that we're going to cover today. So what is trauma and what are its consequences? We're going to talk about trauma and resilience, then post-traumatic growth, and then the story of Jesus as an archetype of post-traumatic growth. So let's see how this goes. But first, we're going to watch a video because when I was preparing this class was Saturday morning. Today is Monday morning. So last Saturday, 2 days ago, I was preparing this in the morning. And it was in the aftermath of what happened in Kentucky, Arkansas, Illinois, regarding the tornado. And I was like, that's very timing, right? It's a providential that I have the opportunity to talk about this topic after such a devastating situation. Now, if some of you have not seen the news or have not received the news about what happened, well, you're going to have a good idea of what happened today, because I want you to watch this video with me. It's 4 or 5 minutes long. It's from a piece of news. So let me share that with you. Give me a second. Okay, I have it ready here. So let's watch the video, and then I will come back and we're going to talk about it, okay?
Good evening. The search for survivors continues tonight after one of the largest tornado outbreaks in US history. At least 70 people have died, and that number will almost certainly grow. The storm has torn through several states, leaving behind what is believed to be the longest continuous trail of destruction ever seen in North America. Our US correspondent, Eamon Ashton Atkinson, has the latest.
Illuminated by flashes of lightning, a powerful, destructive and deadly tornado bears down.
Tornado! Tornado!
Many took shelter, but that meant little for those in its direct path.
Somebody please send us some help. We are trapped. The wall is stuck on me.
In Mayfield, Kentucky, these women were working inside a candle factory in the lead up to Christmas. 110 people had hunkered down, only 40 made it out alive.
We had to, at times, crawl over casualties to get to live victims.
At a nursing home, it was another scene of death and destruction. Residents crushed and killed by debris. Those that survived checked for injuries in the ruins of their once safe and warm sanctuary.
Are you okay?
Experts believe much of the damage may have been caused by a single tornado that first touched down in Arkansas and churned through 360 kilometres, making it the longest and most destructive tornado in US history.
Folks, 200 of those miles were in Kentucky.
From the air, the devastation is clear. Homes and businesses obliterated.
1 block from my grandparents' house, there's no house standing. There's no house standing, and we don't know where all those people are.
Cars were thrown around like toys and left twisted and crumpled. The twister's strength obvious in this one shot, a train blown off its tracks. In Illinois, 6 people died when an Amazon factory collapsed. Much of it was blown into Eddie Horton's mother's front garden. Somehow, it all missed her house.
If you don't believe in God, you need to come talk to me, because you're an idiot.
But today we're going to focus on those who have lost so much. And that's where our hearts are, with them who have lost the people they love and the property and the way they make a living.
Local officials asking for prayers.
Prayer, prayer, prayer. Please pray for these folks.
Jill and I pray, and I sincerely mean this, pray for those who've lost loved ones and for those who are uncertain of the fate of their loved ones.
The death toll will keep climbing as the cleanup begins, an operation that will take months, the rebuild even longer. All this just 2 weeks out from Christmas. Eamon Ashton Atkinson for 10 News First, Washington.
All right, so let me go back to the presentation. So the first thing that we saw in the video is that this tornado, which happened on Friday night, it covered an extension of 360 miles. So the tornado traveled 360 miles, which is unbelievable. 200 of those miles happen in Kentucky, where the most devastating part of the tornado took place. The other thing that it caught my attention about this tornado is how all those people, they woke up in the morning, they thought like, oh, today is another day, it's Friday. We're gonna go to work, and then we're gonna have the weekend, right? We're gonna watch football, we're gonna have meal with the family, maybe we're gonna have some preparations for Christmas or whatever. And suddenly, from nothing, from having all those plans, suddenly things turn upside down. And death visit them. Destruction visit them. This catastrophe visit them, right? And I don't know if you remember when we talked in the first meetings about the existentialists, that they say that there's something important for the existentialists, that is, how are we coping with the idea that we all are gonna die? That we, this idea of being and not being, right? And they say that we face that constantly, right? For example, with the idea of I am a father or I am not a father, because if my children die, what's going to happen with my idea of being a father, right? Or I am a professor or I am not a professor, when I have to face just the idea that maybe I could not teach anymore, or I'm a husband or I'm not a husband, with the idea that if my wife left me, what will happen to me, right? But also in the most complex ways, I am alive or I am not alive, right? And we are facing that constantly, but we are not necessarily conscious about that until very traumatic experiences happen. Experiences that they change the way that we perceive things, experiences that they change the way that we live, experiences that they can impact our whole life, or physical health, or mental health, or social health, everything, right? And that they are so impactful that sometimes they are not just individual, but community experiences such as this one, right? So they woke up thinking, I am a worker, I am a husband, I am a mother, I am a wife, I am a daughter, I am a, and then they are not, there's no being anymore. They die, right? Some of them, they say that the number of deaths so far is around 100. And now the family has to deal with that. My mom was, and now she's not, all right? She's not here, she's not alive, being and not being, right? Now, I need to tell you that I was not very used to tornadoes, because in Mexico there are not many tornadoes. In my whole life, I have never experienced a tornado in Mexico. However, in Mexico, there are two natural catastrophes that are very common. Well, three in reality. Number one, the most devastating, are earthquakes. That's especially true in the capital of Mexico, which is Ciudad de Mexico. That city was built above a lake, so they dry a lake and then they build the city. This was the Spanish idea. Okay, this was a long time ago. Very bad idea. You don't do that, because now the floor it's shaking, and when there's an earthquake, it amplifies the experience of the earthquake, and it's much more devastating. Now, the number two is hurricanes. Hurricanes, it's different than tornado in the sense that it's like a huge, immense tornado, but because it's so huge, the power of the tornado is distributed in all that extension of the tornado. So the tornado, it's spinning, and this happens very much, or I will say, it happens all the time in the coast, all right, close to the ocean. But what happens is that because it's so big, it can cover more than one state, okay? So when it hits very bad in a lot of places. It's not like a laser tag, because that's how tornadoes works here, right? They're like a laser tag. They are going boom, 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 and whatever they are hitting, they are devastating. That here is the hurricanes are so big that they impact a lot of areas. But again, the power is distributed. It still can be very, very damaging, very hurtful. But tornadoes, they have a peculiarity, right? Because they are like, as I was telling you, they're like a laser tags, and wherever they pass, they impact very, very bad. I had my first experience of a tornado this year because there was a tornado close here in my home. After 8 years of living here, my first tornado, and it hit like, I would say 5 or at the most 10 blocks from my home. And it was very interesting because here at home, we felt the air, right, crushing the walls and the trees, but nothing happened. At the most, some branches and so on. But 7, 8 blocks from my home, it was completely devastated. Trees upside down, houses with no roof, and so on. And I was really surprised to see how impactful it was. Then in Mexico, we also have a lot of floods, a lot of water that, but it's not as, well, it is very bad, but it's not as bad as an earthquake or a hurricane, right? Now, with that in mind, the video was also talking about the reaction that the people are having to this tornado and the impact that has caused. And I don't know if you noticed, but at the end of the video, and they showed this guy that the roof of the Amazon factory landed in his backyard, right? And pretty much damaged everything but his house. And I don't know if you noticed what he was saying, like, if you don't believe in God, you need to come and talk to me because you're an idiot. And I was like, what? Like, I laughed, but at the same time, I was like, why are you having that reaction? And then the mayor, then the officials, and then President Biden, all of them asking us to pray for them, for the victims of this tornado. So first, I don't think that if you don't believe in God, you are an idiot, but I do believe that you are hopeless. Because without God, none of the things that happen to us have any meaning or purpose. Without God, these terrible experiences that we are going to face in life, there's no redemption, there's no option to overcome them. There's no, meaning. There's a concept that it's called teleology. It's not theology, okay? It's teleology. This teleology is the meaning that experiences have across the time, not in the present moment, but later on. So it's like when Jesus was with his disciples telling them about the temple, if you destroy this temple after 3 days, I will rebuild this temple and things like that. He was talking in a theological way, not a theological way, okay? Teleological way. It's about telos. Telos means distance, okay? It's a Latin word. And what happened, the disciples, they were able to understand what he was saying just after that, all that happened, right? It makes sense to them after. Well, many things like that happen in us in life. We have a romantic failure, or like a romantic deception, or we have, an illness or a difficulty in life. And it's only with the time that we're able to see, oh, that was so difficult. But thanks to that, I have learned this, and that. Thanks to that, I'm stronger than before. Thanks to that, I learned how to do things in a different way. It's with the time that we start seeing some of the meaning and purpose of those experiences. Anyway, but going back to this praying thing, yes, I don't think that you are an idiot if you don't believe in God, but I do think that you are hopeless. Because then what's after this life? If there's no God, there's nothing. What's the point then of being here, being alive? But it's very interesting how even the President of the United States, the most powerful nation in the world, with all the technology, with all their wealth, with all the richness, with all their power, they surrender on these natural catastrophes. And they realize not even all our power, not even all our technology, it's enough for us to cope with this situation. Not even that is enough for us to be able to overcome this situation. So we need God, right? And that's hope. That's hope. Hope in the sense of understanding. I am a children. I am a children of God. And even in these difficult times, God is gonna find the ways to help me, even when I don't see it clearly, or when it is not as the way that I was thinking, right? And He is the one who can help me in these difficult times. Now, it has a psychological element as well, because when you are confronted with situations of this magnitude and you see that human power is not enough, but you have this belief that there's this superior power that is going to take care, well, that brings serenity, that brings relief, that brings that brings the tranquility that we need to face difficult experiences in life, and to know that sooner or later things will make sense and things are going to be okay. So this is one example of catastrophes, traumatic events that people can experience in life. But there are many different types of experiences that can impact not only the individual, but also the community, as we were saying, or the family, and have a psychological impact. And that is what we call trauma. But there's a lot of controversy about trauma, and people are misusing the concept of trauma in different ways. People think that having adverse events in life is trauma, but that is not trauma. People think that having an earthquake or having violence or having, that is trauma, but that is not trauma. Those are adverse life events. So what is trauma then? Well, trauma is a person's emotional response to a distressing experience. You see, I brought this from Psychology Today. I like Psychology Today. Not all that is in Psychology Today. Some things I think that they are not good at all, but then they have things that are very useful. So use your criteria when you are visiting Psychology Today, okay? But this section of trauma, I really like it. That's why I brought this to you guys. So trauma is a person's emotional response to a distressing experience. Trauma is not the event. Trauma is the response to the event. Many people are going to be impacted by this tornado. Many people are going to experience earthquakes. Many people are going to experience rape. Many people are going to experience violence. And they are not going to have a negative emotional response. They're going to be able to go through that experience and keep going with their lives without important emotional impact or toll in their lives. So, but some people are going to go to these experiences and they're going to have an emotional response that is distressing, that is impacting them, that is negative, that is having a negative impact on them. That is trauma, okay? It's the response, it's not the event. Few people can go through life without encountering some kind of trauma. What does this mean? We all are going to experience difficult situations in life. Now, here there's like a contradiction in what they are saying, because they are moving from the personal emotional response to events. But again, keep that in mind, guys. And we're going to talk in a moment of why is that important. But we all are going to have either the experience of the death of a loved one, either a car accident, a violent event, a natural catastrophe, an illness, or own death, right? All those are very adverse events that we all are going to have to face. But not because we're going to face that means that we all are going to experience trauma. Some people are going to respond to that in a trauma way, and other people are going to respond to that in a healthy coping way. And that's a huge difference. Unlike ordinary hardships, traumatic events tend to be sudden and unpredictable. So here they are helping us to distinguish. We all have hardships like the stress in the work, the coronavirus thing going on, or economical difficulties, right? But those are not traumatic events. I will say possible traumatic events, okay, to continue with the personal emotional response idea. But those possible traumatic events, in reality, they tend to be sudden and unpredictable, and they involve a serious threat to life, like bodily injury or death, and feel beyond a person's control. So yeah, if you're in a tornado, that's a possible traumatic event, right? Because it's completely out of your control. Your life is in risk. You can be harmed in many ways. And you most likely are going to see also other people dying, right? Or for example, 9/11. By the way, I just watched a documentary of 9/11 in Apple TV. I will suggest you to watch it. It's the perspective from the inside of the president of the United States and his government team. How did they learn about the event and how did they react and so on? It's very interesting. So that was a traumatic event, an event with a high level of traumatic response, right? Or possibility of traumatic response, not only for the people who were in the airplane, but also the people who were near, and the people, of course, the people in the towers and the people near the towers. And you know what? For all of us that were able to watch that pretty much in real life, in real time, right? Through the television. So those events that were so impactful that we didn't have any control, that involved the death of people, the risk of our own death, and that there's no control of them, well, those are events that have higher chances to develop a traumatic response, okay? Most important, events are traumatic to the degree that they undermine a person's sense of safety in the world and create a sense that catastrophe could strike at any time. So, for example, many rape survivors, they experienced that because they had this traumatic experience with a man, for example, with someone, they cannot trust any man because in any moment it can happen. Or if you were the victim of a shooting, you may not want to leave your house anymore because you are afraid that in any given moment and in any given situation, another shooting can happen. Or if you're a soldier and you are coming back from war, because you were exposed to so many events with high level of possibility to develop traumatic reactions. Now you are here, you live in the suburbs, everything is nice, calm, beautiful, but you are constantly alert that something might happen, that maybe, and that you cannot let your guard down because may something happen, right? Parental loss in childhood, auto accidents, physical violence, sexual assault, military combat experiences, the unexpected loss of a loved one are commonly traumatic events. And of course, depending in other places where people live, there are other type of traumatic events. So for example, in my home country, the incidence of kidnapping is so high that many people are struggling with PTSD because kidnapping, right? Yeah, all right. So I'm leaving there the link so you can go to Psychology Today and you can read the whole section of trauma. I think that that will be good for you guys, okay? Now, what are the consequences of trauma? That means what happened in us when we are having an emotional traumatic response to this type of events. Well, the first thing is to understand how our brain works when we are under a traumatic event and when we are having this traumatic experience in ourselves. We all have in our brain a section that is called the amygdala. This is a region in the brain that it's in control very much of the way that we emotionally react in life. So when we are encountering adverse event in life that has these traumatic elements that we have been saying, that amygdala is going to activate the sympathetic nervous system, which at the same time is going to activate adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol. Those are the stress hormones, right? When we are under a lot of stress, we're going to activate those hormones. And with that activation of the amygdala, sympathetic nervous system, and these stress hormones, we're going to experience what it's called the fight, flight, or freeze response. This is an evolutionary protective mechanism that pretty much all the animals, at least animals with amygdala, are going to experience. If you ever go to the forest and you see a deer, what usually deers do when they see a human? They froze, right? They are like, if I don't move, that dumb human is not going to see me, and then I'm going to be fine. And they are just like that, right? Pretending that they are not there, like if they can camouflage. And then the dumb human is like, I can see you, dear. I can see you. You are not in the midst of the bushes. You are just in the pathway, so I can see you, right? Who's the dumb here? Anyway, if you continue walking, what is the deer gonna do? Well, if the deer sees that you are still walking towards him, what it's gonna do is that it's gonna run away. Most of the times, right? They're gonna fly. Why? Because they are not predators. Because they are prey, because they know that humans can kill them. So most part of the time they are gonna run away. But sometimes even deers can fight back, right? That happened to me once. It was not fun at all in the forest. A big macho deer with beautiful horns. He was not happy with me there. He was not moving. It was me, the one who ended up running, right? Well, if you think about these three responses, they help animals, they help us to protect us from danger. With that freeze, flight, fight response that we have, either we camouflage from danger, either we run away from danger, or we fight back to danger to protect ourselves. So it's okay. It's okay. What people experience when they have a panic attack is precisely this fight, flight, or freeze response, but in situations that there's no real threat. That's why we need to help them to see the problem is not your reaction. The problem is that your reaction is being activated in situations where there's no real threat, okay? But imagine that you are in a tornado, or you're in a mass shooting, or you are in a, someone is assaulting you, or someone tries to rape you, or you're in a kidnap, or you're in combat. Well, if you have this response, this fight, flight, or freeze response, it's a good thing because you're going to try to protect yourself. But because these events are so overwhelming, there's many people that even with this response, they cannot protect themselves, right? It's like the lady in the video. Did you see that lady saying like, please help us. The wall is above me. The wall fall down on us. We need help, right? Okay, she experienced the fight, flight, or freeze response when the tornado was hitting her area. She perhaps tried to do something, but then the wall fall down on her. She cannot move. So that response is not helping to protect her is not accomplishing the purpose of that response. And that's when the problem of trauma really start happening. Because if that response really work, you're gonna be like, whoo, that was close, but I'm okay, I'm safe, right? But if that response didn't work, you're gonna be like, oh, I was hopeless. That was horrible. There was nothing for me that I was able to do to survive. I survived because, I don't know, thanks to the first responders, thanks to God, but I did nothing to survive. I was not able to protect myself. So people start feeling hopeless. Not only that, many people start blaming themselves. So this is very typical in people with rape stories. They say like, it's my fault. I should have not been in the street that day. I should have never dated that guy, or I should have never been in the bar by myself, or something like that, right? And they start blaming themselves, and you're like, no, it's not your fault. It's his fault. He's the one who decided to do that. But they cannot see that because, again, the amygdala was so activated, this fight, flight, or freeze response was so activated, and it failed to protect the person. And then the person can blame themselves. And because I'm going to try to explain this in the best of my possibilities. It's better to blame yourself in a situation like that, psychologically speaking, in the short term, than blaming others. Because if you blame yourself in that moment, then you think, this happened because I didn't take care of myself appropriately. Therefore, if in the future I take care of myself appropriately, this will not happen again. Now, you and I know that that's a lie. You and I know that that's not true. That regardless what the person was doing to try to protect himself or herself, the situation happened, and it was not because of his or her actions, but because of the decision of someone else, or because of a natural catastrophe like in a tornado, right? But if the person doesn't think in that way, in the short term, what will happen is that the person will think, it was not because of me, it was because that person, or because of the tornado, or because of this and this. And that could lead to some people to think I am in constant danger. If that person raped me, therefore any other person could rape me. That's what we call overcompensation, okay? And in this stage, what the person is doing is trying, instead of changing the way that she understands the world, to accommodate her way of thinking to what happened, she's trying to change what happened to accommodate in her mind when they blame themselves. But when they don't do that and they go to the other extreme, then they are in a state of hopelessness, in a stage of constant vulnerability. And that's why they experience trauma too. So what's the option that they have? Well, they need to realize this was not your fault. Now, this is that person's responsibility, or this is the result of that particular tornado or hurricane or earthquake or that specific military combat that you had. But that was a situation that happened, but it's not happening anymore. It's not something permanent, constant. And therefore, you were in danger in that moment. And because of that, it makes sense that in that moment you felt afraid, that you fight back, that you try to fly, that you try to froze, it makes sense, the reactions that you had. But now that that situation is not happening and that you're in a safe place, the reaction that you are having, it still makes sense with the past, but not with the present. Because that reaction that you are having is a reaction that is trying to protect you, but there's no danger anymore. And because there's no danger anymore, but you have this fight, flight, or freeze response activated, you're struggling. You're developing PTSD, okay? So we need to help these people to identify your response is appropriate to the event that happened and makes sense to the event that happened. But your response, it doesn't make sense with what is happening right here, right now, because there's no adverse events anymore. Why is that you still reacting in that way? Why is that your amygdala and your fight, flight, or freeze response is still activated? Because you are overgeneralizing the event. Because you are thinking, that happened to me at that moment. Therefore, it can happen to me at any given moment. Then you are seeing danger everywhere. So you need to learn to see your thoughts and to identify how those thoughts, again, made sense in the past, but they don't make sense in the present, and to come with a better way of thinking, not only the present, but also what happened. But as I say to you, many of these survivors, they experience guilt, they experience also shame, and because they experience this guilt and shame, they will continue with this activation. I did something to deserve this, or I am a terrible person because this happened to me, and they are activating these responses. So we need to work on that. We need to help them to see it was not because of you. And there's nothing to be ashamed of, because it was not your responsibility. It was the responsibility of someone else, okay? So some people experience long-term trauma, extreme anxiety, anger, sadness, survivor's guilt. Why I survive, but not my children? It should be me and not them, for example. Disassociation, the inability to feel pleasure, or what we call anhedonia, and PTSD, okay, post-traumatic stress disorder. All right. Now, there's a concept going on that it's the concept of resilience. Oops, I apologize. Many people are talking about resilience in the sense of an ability that we all have to go through adversity and come out as we were before. This is a concept that was borrowed from the physics. So, and I'm going to explain you. You see this, how do you call it? Rubber band? Yeah, I think so. So it has, you could say that it's like some type of circular shape, right? But then look what I can do with it. I can stretch it. I can aplastarla. I don't know how to say that in English, right? Just mash it, and it comes back to the regular shape. So this is a very resilient object. Now, it's not very strong. It's very resilient because it goes through adversity and comes back to the original shape. See? So many people are confused about resilience and strength. They think that it's synonymous, but it is not. It's this. Look at the definition. It's a psychological quality that allows some people to be knocked down by adversities of life and come back at least as strong as before, rather than letting difficulties, traumatic events, or failure overcome them and drain their resolve. Highly resilient people find a way to change course, emotionally heal, and continue moving towards their goals. So resilience is different than strength, right? It's resilience. People with resilience, they are going to experience the stress, they are going to experience the hardships of life, but they're going to come back to their original shape. So many people in the tornado, they're going to experience a lot of stress right now. They are suffering right now, but maybe 1, 2, 3 weeks from now, they're going to be moving on in their lives. They're going to continue with their lives, and they're going to be like, wow, that was tough. you know, I still have a family. I need to provide for them. I need to continue working. So yeah, thank you, God, that I'm alive, but I need to continue with my life. That's resilience. Now, what happened? Let me see. I'm in my daughter's bedroom today because we have construction workers, and I'm looking for a pencil. That would be a good idea, having a pencil. Yeah, there's a pencil here. So the pencil is stronger than the rubber band, right? It's stronger. You can put weight on it. Yeah, it's stronger. But is it resilient? What will happen if I do this? Oops, it broke, right? Look, it was not resilient. It was not resilient. It was strong, but it was not resilient. Now my daughter is going to be disappointed with me. All right, we'll see if I can fix this. I was not planning to break the pencil. I thought that it was a little bit more resilient than it was. But the pencil is not resilient. So what happened? It's broken. Now I need to see if I can fix the pencil or not. And if I can fix the pencil, see if it's going to work as it was working before or not. Same thing happens with us. Our mind, for some people, have this resilience possibility, and they are not going to be as impacted. But for other people, it's like a pencil. They are strong, but they are not really resilient. And when difficult things happen in life, they broke. Sometimes it's because they have experienced many difficulties in life, many possible traumatic events since childhood, for example. Some other times it's because the situation was so difficult that no matter if you were resilient or not, you will broke. But some other times it's because, I don't know how to say this politely. Some students say like, you are not very political correct, Dr. Guzman, but I want to, I'm just gonna say it, guys. I don't mean any disrespect. But sometimes it's because people can be naive. You know, there's this idea of everyone is beautiful. Every person it's a good person, and there's no bad persons out there, right? Which is a very contrasting with what we see in social media, that they are presenting every single person that doesn't think like us as the evil one, right? But you know, when you meet someone that thinks in that way, oh, we all are good. Oh, every person is a good person. No. It's just the difficulties or society have made them bad. Well, that's not true. The reality is that we all have the tendency for the good and for the bad. That's what Saint Augustine was. He called that concupiscence. Is the natural tendency to evil, to sin, right? We are broken people. We are sinful, and we live in a sinful world. So if you think that that nothing bad is going to happen to you, if you think that all people are good, if you think that you are free of any danger in life, well, you might not be prepared for when those things happen to you. And what will happen is that you can broke because you were not ready for that. All right. So resilience is an important thing for sure, because we all are going to experience daily stress and traumatic events or possible traumatic events. And if you have resilience, well, you're going to be just like the roller band. Okay, that was tough. It's over. Keep going. Now let's keep going, right? But sometimes when you broke, it's not necessarily bad. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Because sometimes when you broke, you can fix, and then you can learn. You can learn what happened. You can learn how did you react. You can learn what could you do later on in life? And not only that, you can appreciate. You can appreciate that you are alive. You can appreciate that you went through that situation and now things are different for you. And that's what we call post-traumatic growth. Now, it's a beautiful concept. I dedicate my PhD to this concept of post-traumatic growth. My dissertation is in post-traumatic growth. I publish papers on post-traumatic growth. It's a beautiful concept, but not all people are going to experience post-traumatic growth after they go through traumatic events. Some people, as we said, they're going to come back resilient. That's okay. Some people are going to break, and then they're going to be fixed by therapy, by life events, by situations, but they are not going to grow. They're going to be like, okay, now I'm symptom free. Now I don't have PTSD anymore. Okay, I can keep going with my life. But some people, not all people, are going to fix, and then they're going to be more stronger. They're going to be wiser. They're going to have a different perspective in life. And that is post-traumatic growth. So what's the definition? It's the positive psychological change that some individuals experience after a life crisis or traumatic event. Post-traumatic growth doesn't deny deep distress, but rather posits that adversity can unintentionally yield changes in understanding oneself, others, and the world. Post-traumatic growth can, in fact, coexist with post-traumatic stress disorder. There are 5 areas of post-traumatic growth. Number 1, changes in how they relate to other people. Number 2, recognition of new opportunities, priorities, or pathways in life. Number 3, greater appreciation for the value of one's own life and life in general. Number 4, recognition of one's own strength. And number 5, spiritual or existential development. So how did I get involved in this concept of post-traumatic growth? Well, when I was admitted to my PhD program, I had a different research idea. My idea was to work with the perpetrators of violence in Mexico, because narcos, drug lords, and gang members, and so on, they are causing so much pain in our society. They are kidnapping people, they are raping people, they are assaulting people, stealing. But I thought, like, I need to do something with that, right? I was very naive. And I'm saying that because, it's a huge enterprise that it requires a lot of resources, efforts, commitment, political, that are beyond the possibilities of a PhD student. And I would say even beyond of many of the politicians, sometimes even beyond the president, right? Now, with that, I'm not saying that there's nothing that we should do. We have to do things to try to improve the world. We are called to do that as Christians. But my original plan was to work with the inmates, those who perpetrate violence in the penitentiary system in Mexico. So when they go out of the system, they can go out with a different mindset, and that they do not repeat their violent crimes. Now, Mexico there's a lot of corruption. I love my country, don't misunderstand me, but there's a lot of corruption. And the judicial system, it's a horrible system. So I was working in jail with inmates. And then what happened is that there was a new governor, and every time that a new governor comes to place, they move pretty much everyone in the government, and they move the director, the principal of the jail, like I don't know, the principal is, the principal of the jail. And with that, the new principal, he also removed the grants that I was receiving to do that research with the prison population and so on. So I was like, what am I going to do now? At the same time, my family and I were experiencing many violent events. We had people that they broke into my house several times. I have people waiting for me in the garage with a gun pointing into my head. They took my car, they took my computer, my wallet. I was driving my motorcycle one day and I was with two friends and myself, and then a van stopped with 4 gunmen, and they took our motorcycles or helmets or wallets, everything, right? But then the last of those violent events was that I was in a forest preserve when a mass shooting took place. And unfortunately, they killed the person that was beside me. And while they were still, it was a guy, while he was still shooting at us, I was at the same time helping that person to die appropriately, if that term is appropriate, I don't know. I was trying to comfort him in his very last seconds of life, really. And that was very traumatic. So I was in the middle of my PhD. The project that I was working with, it was canceled. And then I was having all these violent experiences happening to my family and happening to myself. And I thought, like, why am I working with the perpetrators instead of working with the victims? If working with the perpetrators is so difficult, I should work with the victims and try to help them. Because with the victim, you don't have to change the government, you don't have to change the corruption in the country, you don't have to change, you just have to help the patient, the victim, to change the way that they are reacting to what happened to them, the way that they are interpreting that situation, and help them to find a better way to do so, a way that can edify them, a way that can help them to see that they are worth, that they are strong, and that there's meaning in their life, and that there's a whole universe of possibilities for them, right? So what I did is that I shift my research project and I start working with people with PTSD who have experienced violent events in Mexico. And it was 2 different sections of the research. First section, it was help them to come out of the PTSD experience. And second section was to help them to promote this post-traumatic growth. Because at that time, we only had reports of people experiencing post-traumatic growth, but we didn't know how to help people to build post-traumatic growth in their life. So that's how I got involved in this project. And that's how I got involved in the concept of post-traumatic growth. And honestly, I am very thankful because I had beautiful experiences, people who were kidnapped, people who lost their relatives, people who were raped, many experiences that were very difficult, but it was beautiful to see that they were able to face that experience and then overcome that experience. Remember when I talked to you about the dragon, facing the dragons? That's what they did. They faced their dragons, they overcome the dragons, and they came out stronger. They came out with post-traumatic growth, changes in the way that they relate with other people in a positive way, right? They appreciate people more. Recognizing new opportunities and priorities in their pathways of life, with greater appreciation for the value of their own lives and life in general, recognition of their own strength, and having a more spiritual perspective of life. It was beautiful to work with them. And I like to bring this to you because I want to tell you, you might be like a roller rant, right? And you may go through different events and you are like, okay, I went through that and now I'm continuing with my life, and that's good. But maybe one day you're going to be like the pencil. And if this is you, you can do this. And not only this, you can learn from this. You can grow from this. You can overcome this. And you can have this growth experience for yourself and for others. It's a possibility. People who are able to face what happened, people who are able to talk about what happened, people who are able to recognize how what happened impacted them, people who are able to work with that wound that they have after the event, and people who learn to see this with a perspective of hope and learning experience have more chances to develop this post-traumatic growth, okay? All right, if you want to know more about my research, I'm leaving here two links. One is to an article that they published me in Psychology Today, okay? So probably this is the most accessible in terms of the language and technical concepts. And the second link is to a paper that was published in a scientific journal with the research that I did along with my colleagues. So maybe you want to take a look on that and you perhaps want to learn more about post-traumatic growth, okay? All right, now, the story of Jesus as an archetype of post-traumatic growth. We are at the end of our conversation now. This is the last topic. And I want to tell you about this painting first. Well, I think that I'm going to tell you the story of Jesus first, and then I'm going to talk to you about the painting, okay? So in Luke 22, 42 to 43, it says, Father, if you are willing, take this cup away from me. Still, not my will, but yours be done. And to strengthen him, an angel from heaven appeared to him. So that same text is telling us that Jesus was so anxious about what will happen to him that he was trembling and he was sweating blood, which is a natural phenomenon. People, when they experience a lot of distress, the blood vessels, they broke and they start bleeding a little bit. But with when they are sweating, that blood comes out. And that's a sign of the level of distress that that person is experiencing. It's not a common event, but it's possible. And that is telling us what Jesus was experiencing at that moment. He knew what will happen to him. Remember when we talk about the cross, that I say to you that we have become used to see the cross as a element of hope and as an element of reconciliation, as an element of, but that at the time the cross was an element of terror, an element of a nightmare, an element of horrible experience, right? So Jesus knew they are going to crucify me and it's going to be horrible. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be a lot of pain. That's why he was shaking. That's why he was bleeding blood. But see what he says. Father, if you are willing, take this cup away from me. Still, not my will, but yours be done. So it's very natural that when we are going through difficult times, we can say, please, God, help me. I don't want this. Please, God, help me. This is too much. This is difficult. I don't like this, right? That's normal. That's human. And he's our Father. It's okay that we call him and that we ask him. However, he's our Father. He's not a worker, okay? People, sometimes they don't understand. They confuse their position when we are talking about God. Like if God has to work for them. I asked God to do this for me and he didn't. That's why I don't believe in God. And who are you to tell God What is what he has to do and what is what he doesn't have to do? Don't forget that we are the servants. He is the Lord. We are the children. He is the Father. We have to obey. He do not have to obey us, right? So with that in mind, Jesus is giving us the solution. Still, not my will, but yours be done. Yes, I ask you this as the children ask help to his father. But I recognize that you are the one in charge and that it's not about my will, but your will. And if you want this to happen, just give me the strength, right? Help me so I can accept your will. And that's the second part of this message from the Bible. And to strengthen him, an angel from heaven appeared to him. Such a beautiful, right? When we accept the will of God, we receive transcendental spiritual strength that can help us to go through those difficulties that we are facing. But as long as we resist the will of God, as long as we want that our will be done and not your will, we don't receive that strength. So Jesus is giving us a beautiful example on what do we have to do when we encounter possible traumatic events, because the cross was a huge traumatic event, right? So he's telling us you have to accept your Father's will. 2, this is from Luke 23, 33, 34. When they came to the place called the Skull, or Golgotha, they crucified him and the criminals there, one on his right, the other on his left. Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Forgiveness is such a difficult experience. It's not easy to forgive someone when they killed your son. It's not easy to forgive someone when they rape you. It's not easy to forgive someone when they kidnap you. It's not easy to save someone when someone tried to hurt you intentionally, right? But those who are able to experience post-traumatic growth, they make peace with what happened. They make peace with the person who happened to do that to them. Now, you don't need forgiveness to overcome PTSD, okay? You can overcome PTSD without forgiveness. But to develop post-traumatic growth, you need to make peace with the situation. To learn to see the situation as unfortunate, as painful, as something that you didn't desire, but not as something that was bad. When people are able to do that and see like, wow, that was really difficult, really tough, so hurtful, but thanks to that, now I'm this new person. Thanks to that, now I appreciate my relationships better. I appreciate life better. I feel closer to God. Thanks to that, I'm stronger. Thanks to that. That's when people start making peace with that experience. And that's when post-traumatic growth can become a reality. So on one hand, Jesus is telling us, you have to accept the difficult experiences that you will encounter in life. Then you have to make peace with that. You need to forgive them. You need to forgive those who are responsible for that, because they are as broken as you. They are as sinful as you. And even though, yes, justice needs to be done and so on, but you need to forgive. Because when you forgive, you're accepting the will of God completely, right? So I want to tell you an experience of one of my patients. This guy was kidnapped, a horrible kidnap. experience. I'm not going to tell you details because I don't want to traumatize you. There's a type of trauma that it's called vicarious trauma. That's very common in psychologists because we listen so many horrible things that then we can end up having vicarious trauma. But this patient was kidnapped for several weeks and he lost everything. He was humiliated, beaten, tortured, everything, right? And he lost all his money, his properties, everything. So he needs to start from scratches again, from zero. And I had the opportunity to work with him. Then I had to come here. And one day I received an email. He says to me, "Hey, Mari, I hope that you are doing well. I just want to inform you that since we stopped seeing each other, things have changed very positively in my life. I have been able to accept what happened to me, and I have been able to stop regretting the experience. And not only that, I have been able to see that in the midst of that experience, there was a seed of opportunity for me and my family. This seed of opportunity now has become a tree. And that tree is that I have a new company now. I'm doing better than before in my company. It's a new company. I start from zero, but I have been able to grow the company and it's more successful than the previous one. That seed of possibility is also my relationship with my wife and my children. I'm in a better place now. I'm a more loving husband, more loving father, and I'm much more present with them. And I am also in a different spiritual path now. I know that God allowed that to happen to me because he wants me to change my paths in life. He wants me in a different place than in what I was. And I think that working with you and with your therapy was part of that. So I want to thank you. So I'm telling you this by memory. I may have changed some words because this was 4 years ago that I received that email. And I couldn't but cry. It was like so emotional for me to receive that email and see that, wow, this guy is an example of post-traumatic growth. He's just like Jesus. He accepts his cross. He forgives those who bring the cross to him. And then he grows. In Luke 23:46, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." And when he had said this, he breathed his last. Is this trusting, right? I still don't see why, what's the purpose, but I trust in you. And finally, in Luke 24:25-26, and he said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets spoke. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and enter into his glory?" So the resurrection of Jesus is the post-traumatic growth, but the resurrection of Jesus, this glorious body, right, is the result of the process of recognizing his fear, asking his Father, "I don't want this," but then shifting his mindset and saying, "But it's not about what I want, it's about what you want. So according to your will, not to my will." And then he receives this spiritual strength to overcome the situation and to be able to forgive those who bring the cross to him. And because he commands his spirit to God, right? He's like, "I'm yours. This is not about me. This is about you. And it's not me, the one that is in control. It's you, the one is in control. And if I accept that, then I can rise in a glorious body, right?" And that's what happened to Jesus. That's what happened to my patients with post-traumatic growth. That's what will happen to us as well. When life hurt us, when life is difficult, maybe if we follow these 4 steps, maybe we're going to be like Jesus. We're going to be able to resurrect in a new way of seeing things, in a new way of relating with others, in a new way of accepting God's will, in a new way of connecting with God. So it's not about not having difficulties in life. It's about letting God work His grace through those difficulties in us. All right, so now the painting, right? You're gonna be like, okay, what is about that painting, Dr. Guzman? I'm leaving a link here. You can read more about this painting in that link. It's a beautiful painting in Italy that thankfully was saved by a Britain colonel, Britain military person. When it was the Second World War, World War II, they were attacking Italy because, as you remember, Italy was an ally of the Nazis. So Nazis and also the Italian army under the command of Mussolini, they were they were attacking, or they were defending, whatever we want to call it, in the south of Italy. And what the allies, like United States, Britain, and other countries, France, Belgium, and so on, they were doing is that they were first bombarding the towns where these Nazis and Mussolini armies were located. So to try to soften the area, right? And then the ground troops will come in and will have the fight. But unfortunately, Italy, right? They were bombarding monasteries, they were bombarding churches, they were bombarding government office buildings that have been there for centuries, millennials. And the destruction that took place at that moment was horrible, and a lot of masterpieces they were lost. But there was this piece in one of the council in the city hall or something like that in one of the towns, that one of the commanders, one British commander, he read about this painting. Because Aldous Huxley, I don't know if you know Aldous Huxley, he was a great writer, German writer. He has many great books, such as El Lobo Estepario. I read them in Spanish. Sorry, guys. Siddhartha, El Juego de los Avalorios. Anyway, you should look for him. It's Aldous Huxley. I apologize. That was wrong information. The author that I was telling you is Hermann Hesse, is the one who wrote the books that I was telling you, and Aldous Huxley is the author of the Brave World. Brave World, I think it's how it's called. It's a magnificent sci-fi book that I will suggest you to read it. Yeah, by sure. Brave World. Yeah. All right. Anyway. So he considered this painting the greatest painting ever in the human history. And the British colonel who was in charge of attacking that town, he reminds that, and he was like, oh no, I cannot destroy that. If it's the greatest picture ever, I cannot destroy that, right? So he postponed the attack to the town. And thankfully, next day, they surrender. And the painting was safe, the town was safe. The people in the town, they were very happy with him because he didn't destroy this painting as many other paintings were destroyed and sculptures with the attack. Now, just with that, we have a story of post-traumatic growth there and resilience and many things. But now, I want you to take a look in the picture. Jesus in his resurrection. The soldiers, we all know the story, right? They fell asleep, the angel came, removed the stone, and Jesus was risen. But look at Jesus. Look at his face. He's tired. He's exhausted. His eyes are exhausted. His mouth is exhausted. But even though he's strong, look at his body. It's a strong body. Even though he still has blood in his body, it's not weak as it was in the cross. You can see the muscles. You can see his position, right? I have overcome death. You can see his glorious body. And you can see his attackers, his perpetrators, the soldiers. They have no power against him anymore. That's post-traumatic growth, guys. Jesus is the archetype of post-traumatic growth, and we are fortunate to have faith in Jesus. Because if we imitate Jesus when we go through difficult times, we can also experience this post-traumatic growth. Okay? All right. I'm leaving this conversation there. Please go and read that article. You're going to like the story of the painting. And now it's time for me to, give me a second. Oh, I don't know what I did. Okay. I'm going to fix that in a moment. Okay, where am I? Here, I'll stop sharing. I was not able to see where was the stop sharing. But now it's time to me to say thank you, guys. It's time to me to say thank you for this semester. Thank you for everything. It was a pleasure. And as I said at the beginning, I feel honored that you share with me your stories. Honored to have such a great students who were able to do such an amazing things with that altruistic assignment that I asked you. And I want to wish you Merry Christmas, not only with my words, but with all my heart. I hope that you can be able to live the experience of Jesus coming, but Jesus coming to your hearts, Jesus living in your heart as a baby that needs to grow through your faith experience, through your reading of the Bible, through getting close to the sacraments, to your prayer life, to thinking how can you become closer to God, finding the path of God in your life, okay? And if you ever has to face the struggle of the cross, remember, he also did that, and he overcome that, and you also can embrace that, face that, and overcome that if you are close to him. I hope that you like not only this video, but the whole class this semester, and more importantly, I hope that this class can help you in your personal growth process. Thank you, and God bless you guys.